Well, good day to you. It is March the 11th, 2021. Hope you're having a great day wherever you are. Now, I want to say real quick, I'm trying to change the way that we say the number 11. So rather than calling it 11, I think we should all start calling it 1T1 because, there's 21, 31, 41, 51, 61, right? Why do they call it 11? They should call it 1T1. So it's 3-1T1, 21. I hope you're having a great day wherever you are. Whenever, like I said, whenever you happen to be listening to this video. If you're stumbling across this video for the first time and you've never heard anything about this, I really want to welcome you. I'm going to give a brief introduction real quick about what we talk about. If you are perhaps listening to these videos and you've heard these videos before, welcome back. If you don't want to hear the introduction again, perhaps you could just fast forward a few minutes and then pick up where we the meat and potatoes of this video is where we do the question and answer and so forth. But what we talk about here is the emergence of Maitreya and the Masters of Wisdom. And what we do, I give a brief introduction in these videos, and then we talk about who and what Maitreya is sometimes, who and what he is not, of course, why the Masters are returning now, and what does it mean for everyone. Now, we tend to focus on the religious side of this story because so many people are hung up on the religious perspective of this story. Okay. Now, if you're like me and you're not particularly religious, you don't find yourself perhaps an evangelical Christian, that's fine. I'm not catering these videos to them. I'm trying to keep it as broad as possible for everyone. So I'm saying this as a disclaimer, but I'm also saying this to those of us who perhaps, don't find themselves particularly religious. So don't think that there's nothing in these videos for you, okay? Because really, the most important thing that we talk about here is the priorities of Maitreya and the Masters of Wisdom. The biggest priority that Maitreya would say is that humanity must create is peace. It's very crucial that we do this. He says our very survival depends on it. But he puts it like this: without sharing, there can be no justice. Without justice, there can be no peace. And without peace, there can be no future. Now, we also tie it into current events, and then we look at the many miracle signs that have been going on all around the world. And if you do your own research, if you haven't seen these miracles in your life, you'll be blown away about how many there are, how long they've been going on, and the fact that they're not only happening to the Christians, but they're also happening to the Hindus, they're happening to the Muslims, they're happening to the Jews in Israel, they're happening to the Buddhists, and they're also happening to people of no faith whatsoever. So, it really is evidence. If you're someone who has an open mind and perhaps inquisitive on things, and you start looking at this, you can't help but wonder, why are they happening to all the religions? If the Christians think they're 100% right? And perhaps you might find yourself in this category, right? You think that what you were taught from the cradle about life and God and Jesus and everything is 100% right. Then explain to me, why are these miracles not only happening to the Christians and giving them hope, but they're also happening to the Hindus in India and around the world and giving them hope as well, and the Muslims giving them hope, and the Jewish people, giving them hope, and then people who have no faith whatsoever are having their own miracles too, and it's giving them a sense of hope for the future in their own way. So explain to me why that would be happening like that, unless really the truth of the matter is that we are one. Maitreya's priority for peace, that it's a necessity, really comes down to the fact that we need to start seeing ourselves as one. We're living in a world that's very divided, politically, economically, socially, racially, nationalistically, that kind of thing. There really is no enemy amongst us, right? If you really look at it, the Democrats shouldn't be looking at the Republicans as their enemy. The Republicans shouldn't be looking at the Democrats as their enemy. The division is the enemy. Hate is the enemy, right? Fear is the enemy. That's what we should be fighting, not each other divisively. You know what I mean? Now, what's going to bring about peace? The teacher says very simply, without sharing, there could be no justice. Without justice, there could be no peace. And without peace, there could be no future. Now, this teacher, who made a promise to every world's religions and to the people of no religious faith, is already here and has been living in the Asian community of London for decades. But here relatively recently, about 10 years or so, has been giving interviews on TV. Now, he's portraying himself as an ordinary person. He's not speaking in a way that's being recognized as anything other than just an ordinary person who's concerned about our problems. But somewhere out there on TV is the one awaited by all the world's religions, Maitreya. Again, it's not going by the name Maitreya, he's going by some other name. He might not look like the photos that you might see if you Google Maitreya, which the most popular photo of him is how he appeared in Nairobi, Kenya. But in the not so distant future, more and more and more and more people will start to recognize not only who he is, but more importantly, how important peace is and how important we need to start seeing ourselves as one. And he's already started, it might not look like it, but it's actually happening. He's doing exactly what the Buddha said he would do 2,500 years ago. He said, the Buddhists put it like this: there will come a time, and he's talking about this time, will come another Buddha by name Maitreya Buddha, who will inspire and galvanize humanity to build a brilliant golden civilization based on righteousness and truth. If you look in every one of the religious texts, they talk about the teacher coming back, bringing with it peace, the bringing with him the understanding that we are one. And that's really where we're headed right now. So hopefully that helps. Now, I do want to also kind of tie it into a couple different groups of people who have been listening to a lot of these videos lately, the Filipinos and people from India. If you look at how fundamental, I know my wife's from the Philippines, and there's a very, very strong Catholic presence, of course, in the Philippines, and just as there's a very strong Hindu presence in India, of course, right? Well, like in the Philippines, there are crosses of light that have started to appear in people's windows for decades. There's all this, reaping icons and so forth, but there's also, and it hasn't happened since, but it happened, 25 years ago, I guess, in September of 1996, the Hindu milk miracle. So these miracles are happening to everyone. So anyway, hopefully that helps. All right, now let's get on into the questions here. I have two comments that are diametrically opposed. One said, this is New Age nonsense. The other one says, great content. I'm a believer. Much love and appreciation. I'm going with yours, Jacqueline. I like the way you said it. So anyway, thank you for your encouragement. I appreciate it. This next comment comes from Joku Vane. Thank you for your answer again. This has really helped and comforted me. Even if I don't believe Maitreya is who you say he is, I think you are a good guy, and let God bless you. Well, thank you very much for that. You're very, very kind for that, Joku Vane. Again, and this brings me around to this point. You don't have to believe what I'm saying and who I think Maitreya is to help bring about peace, to help end suffering in the world like hunger or injustice and so forth. Those are the most important things. There will come a time at some point when we see Maitreya and we know who he is and everything like this, and he's not going to want you to change your beliefs. He's just going to want all of us to work together as one family to solve these problems. It starts with the principle of sharing, and if you're kind of, confused about what the principle of sharing is, if you go back even to the last video, I talk about it in the very beginning part about what is the principle of sharing. Is it communism? Is it socialism? It isn't. The most important thing that we can talk about, the most important thing that we can do, is to help bring about the principle of sharing, which will bring about justice eventually and trust amongst the nations, and then we can solve the problems of the world like the environment. And so, you are a testament, Joku Vane, if you're listening to this, for really what I'm hoping and I'm wanting for people who listen to this. And it's not about me being a good guy. I'm not talking about that. It's just, you have an open mind to some degree. And you don't have, like I said, you don't have to believe this. I'm not trying to change your beliefs. I'm not trying to convince you about who Maitreya is. But hopefully you can turn that, rather than just saying I'm a good guy, hey, I'm starting to do something about ending the suffering in the world, and that's the most important thing. So I really do appreciate your comment. All right. First question. I watched one of your videos on George Adamski. You said the extraterrestrials are human in appearance. Could humans mate with extraterrestrials and have children? I guess unless you got up on the etheric planes. Now, most of these, I don't know why you'd ask me this question because, anyway, they are human in appearance. And there are extraterrestrials who have been living amongst us for a while. Now, they have come to Earth in a couple different ways. Okay, the first way, most of the people who are extraterrestrials here, okay, who are living amongst us, whether they know it or not, fell from whatever planet they were spiritually and had to reincarnate amongst our human evolution and live a life like a person and so forth like that. And then eventually they find their way back, and then they probably go back to that planet. So certain historical figures like Leonardo da Vinci, William Shakespeare, Abraham Lincoln, those were all people, whether they knew it or not. I'm sure. What's his name? Leonardo da Vinci knew, but whether Abraham Lincoln knew or not, who knows? But they fell to this planet because they stopped making the grade to stay on the planet they were, because that planet became more evolved. It came to a point in the planetary evolutionary state to where people of a certain level, if they didn't make the grade, have to go to a lesser planet. Just like with our planet, in the future, it will reach the same point in evolution that these other planets have, and anybody that isn't making the grade evolutionary-wise, in point in evolution for themselves, will have to go to a lesser evolved planet and continue on with their evolution. So I guess those people you could, because, Abraham Lincoln had kids, so I guess you'd have to talk to Mary Todd Lincoln about that one. That was pretty good, Robert. You have to give that to me, man. In terms of the other way that these extraterrestrials come, they will come here for a form of service, and lower their vibration enough to where they can, walk into a restaurant or a mall or a church or a building or a business, and interact with people, and you'd have no idea who they were, right? And that happens not often, but it does happen. And then the other way would be through the space vehicles, right? Through the so-called UFOs. But they're living on the higher. Those beings are coming from the higher levels of the etheric plane, which is finer and lighter and has a higher vibration than gas. Than what we would consider the gaseous state of the physical plane. So I'd say that's probably impossible. Now, according to George Adamski, the beings on Venus are quite advanced. They're actually on par with our masters for the most part, and probably even most of them are probably even more advanced than our masters on this planet. And the way that they have their babies is actually through the use of thought. The male actually, and believe me when I say this, I don't know how to do this, but it's just thinks in the female the child, and that's how they do it. They don't actually engage in carnal knowledge the way that we do on this planet. So, does that answer your question? So, anyway, hopefully it does. All right, so the next question you says, I want to study Benjamin Creme. What book would you recommend I begin with? I have to say the one that I started with that I think gets you started the best is Maitreya's Mission Volume 2. And it has a red picture of all of Benjamin Creme's books have pictures of his paintings. And the picture of the painting that's on the cover of this book is the Antichrist. It's a red, and it looks like a upside down yellow moon. And that's the one. It was written in the 90s. And so it kind of, from my point of view, it's starting to get kind of dated, because when I read it, it was his newest book, but it still gets you a lot of basic information about the ageless wisdom teachings that somebody like Benjamin Creme can really break down and explain really, really well. And so if you read Maitreya's Mission Volume 1, that's fine too, or Volume 3 is fine too, but it's just that one for some reason, Maitreya's Mission Volume 2. I've read all his books, hundreds of times, and I would say I recommend to anyone to start with that book and then branch out if you want and start reading some of the other books. So I would say to anybody, if you wanted to read one of Benjamin Creme's books, is read Maitreya's Mission Volume 2, and then if your funds are limited, I would say get one of the Master Speaks books, maybe Volume 1 or Volume 2. And then, as time goes on, kind of branch out into the other ones. So hopefully that helps. All right. The next question you had, can we re-upload your videos to our channel? I guess if you left them at the content and didn't edit it or anything like that, I'm not saying that you would, but this goes for anybody. I have no problem. I trust you, Robert. I don't think that it would be a problem, Anyway. All right. I don't own this information and I don't make any money off of it, so it's not like I'd be losing any money by it being uploaded to your channel. I think any way to get this information out there, you might want to, even if you do that, don't say that you're a spokesperson for them, but just give some links for some different background things. And I would recommend encouraging people to go to the Share International website, to be honest. But anyway, hopefully that helps. All right. The next comment comes from I Am David, and you wrote a few of them. I guess you're putting this in there because somebody asked a question about is Trump Maitreya. So he said, in my opinion, I don't believe an ascended master would be condoning the construction of physical borders to divide populations. Just my thought. Yeah, I agree with that. There's plenty of other reasons why I would say that Trump is not Maitreya too, but that's definitely we can throw that into the mix, David. The next comment that you had says, I feel pretty confident that if I saw Maitreya speaking on TV, I would recognize him. The trouble is I don't know what terrestrial TV is, but my only source of world information is through divine inspiration, and the stimulus for that inspiration stems from direct, I see what you're saying, material human sensory awareness, which is in turn stimulated by the challenging information woven across the WWD. Whew! You really put some thought into this. Anyway, it says, of course, many sources of terrestrial television transmissions end up on the internet as a post-event. I have thus far not seen any internet recordings whereby I could say I saw Maitreya speak. So the question is, Gary, have you ever seen Maitreya on a non-live terrestrial transmission? Okay. You have to explain what that is. I'll guess what I think you're talking about from the 1988 Kenya photos. There's actually, if you go, I think I have a link for the, it's I don't know if it's a CBS News article about what happened where this person's interviewing Mary Akatsa, who was the one that actually is in the photos with him. And we'll talk about that thing in a second. And it says, I guess a secondary question might be, can Maitreya be recognized in a non-live documentary sources? As I believe you are aware that time is a conceptual affair for men. Can the presence of Maitreya be experienced in anything other than the moment we sometimes... Oh, okay, I got you. Refer to as a now. Sure, of course. More than likely, that's how I'm going to actually see him on TV. No, I have not seen Maitreya on TV that, as of yet, that I know of. I always pose this as a theory, David, that... How do I say this? I'm convinced that what Benjamin Creme is saying is true about Maitreya being on TV, only based on my experiences, okay? Because I've had so many experiences with Maitreya in the person, and him saving me from accidents even, or some of the other experiences that I've had, that for somebody like me who's had them, it's just, there's no other explanation for it other than the ageless wisdom teachings about who and what the masters are, right? Now, most people don't have those kind of experiences. And there's a lot of people that have had experiences that maybe isn't quite as dramatic as mine, or they might not have remembered them yet. They might when they see Maitreya on TV. Because I know when I saw Maitreya, even I saw a picture of Maitreya in a book, in the Maitreya's Mission Volume 2 book that I was just talking about with Robert about. I saw that picture of Maitreya, and I had recognized him before. I was like, I've seen that guy before. Where have I seen him? And so I think it's more like, it'll be more like that for people, right? Where they probably will see him on TV. Where have I seen this guy? And it could be stemming from seeing him somewhere in your life at some point. Do you understand what I'm saying? So, but you can recognize Maitreya whether it's on a YouTube clip or on TV or whatever, So I don't think that's a problem. What was the other question? But yeah, in terms of the Maitreya in Nairobi in June of 1988. Oh, and I also want to say too, real quick, David, I apologize, I got the dates wrong. It was so funny. You were talking about that conference, and I kept saying it was in 1988 or 89. And I was driving to work, and all of a sudden this popped in my head. I was like, wait, it was 1990. What was I thinking it was in the 80s? So I was actually gonna comment on it, and you had already answered the question. So anyway, yeah, it was in 1990. But the thing about the experience that happened in Nairobi, Kenya, where he appeared in front of Mary Akatsa's prayer group in front of about 5,000 or 6,000 people. He appeared out of the blue and then disappeared out of the blue in the same way. If it's not I'm 90% sure, and I'm gonna go look at the in my links. I'm sure that I put a link in for that video where you could actually go and watch the news article on it. If it's not there, I think I have it on my Facebook page, where you can go to the Facebook page and watch it as well. But if not, just search for Mary Akatsa, Nairobi, Kenya, Maitreya, and it will pop up. But she talks about what happened. Now, keep in mind, when you're watching this, she does not believe that Maitreya is the one awaited by all the world's religions. She thought she was talking to Jesus. So, because that's how they imagine Jesus to appear. So when people look at that headdress and they go, oh my God, he's the Antichrist, because he doesn't look that... She is or I think she's passed away now. She is a fundamentalist Christian who does not believe in anything that Benjamin Creme was talking about. But that was Maitreya that appeared to her. And she and everybody on the crowd was convinced that was Jesus. So now Maitreya apparently had for years, actually for over a decade, up until the first Gulf War. That's when it stopped. He appeared to religious groups all over the world. And if you read, well, you might be able to see it on the Share International page, but if you eventually get a book called Maitreya's Mission Volume 3, at the very beginning, there's a whole listing of all the cities and towns and who he met, what kind of religious group it was, what the reception of the religious group was. And people always ask, why hasn't anybody come forward with this information? And I interviewed a lady a couple months ago named Betsy Whitfield, and she lives in Texas, and she's a part of the Share International group in Texas and puts out this information. And she put out some information about apparently Maitreya appeared in front of a religious group in and around Dallas some kind of way. And she did hear from a woman who said that she was actually at that prayer gathering, and I think she said this person was told by their pastor not to talk to the public about it. So they wanted to kind of keep it to themselves. But eventually, Benjamin Creme said, eventually more and more people, once Maitreya's out, will start talking about having these experiences when they had them, where Maitreya would appear he always appeared how they would expect the teacher to look. So if he was a Muslim, he would appear as the Imam Mahdi. Some of them recognized him as the Imam Mahdi, just like when he appeared to fundamentalist Baptists or whatever. Some of them would think that he was Satan. Some of them think that he was Jesus, or whatever. It just depended on, and sometimes it was the whole religious group thought that it was Jesus, or they were some were very scared and all that kind of stuff. So that answer, hopefully that adds a little bit to the discussion. All right, now try to keep it a little shorter than I normally do. So I'm going to go ahead and end the video. But if you have any questions, again, please feel free to ask, even if they're religious. That's fine, too. Hope you guys have a great day. You take action and help SOP save our planet. Thanks for listening, and we look forward to talking to you again in future videos.